Welcome to the Black Box of Media, brought to you by Ultimate Edge Communications. I'm your host, Aleisha McCall, and this is episode 7. This is the podcast that lifts the lid on the hidden strategies behind high-performance media advertising. If you've ever wondered why some campaigns drive incredible results while others fall flat, this is where we break it all down. In each episode, I sit down with marketing experts, media buyers, and brand leaders to uncover the tactics, insights, and case studies that drive real impact. So let's unlock the black box of media and change the way you think about media advertising and marketing. Now, today's episode is really honing in on real estate marketing unlocked. We're going to talk about performance, brand, and the future of attribution. Real estate marketing is high stakes with long purchase cycles, shifting consumer behaviors, and increasing pressure to prove marketing ROI. To stay ahead, CMOs in this space have got to be agile and also strategic. So in today's episode, we are unpacking the key drivers to success in real estate. We're going to discuss the strategies that Harcourts have used to make sure that they can drive traffic and lead performance. We're going to look at that balance between brand and performance media. And we're also going to look at the structure of media advertising teams, marketing teams, the evolution of attribution models, and then also how you can engage with prospects through long purchase cycles. So there's lots to unpack on today's episode. We're going to make sure that you walk away with a ton of strategies to help you grow your respective business. Now, I'm delighted to introduce our esteemed guest for today. We've got the CMO of Harcourts International, Trent Sutton. Now, with a marketing background and a marketing career spanning more than 2 decades, Trent has worked for a host of global and local Australian brands, including McDonald's Australia, the National Rugby League, the NRL, Clubs New South Wales, and more recently, McGrath Estate Agents, and now currently in his role as Chief Marketing Officer for Harcourts International. This is a global company across 11 countries, boasting a network of close to 1,000 offices and more than 10,000 people. So this man has got his hands full. Trent's career has been working with like-minded individuals to help build brand trust, grow consumer engagement, and ultimately drive sales. He is a busy man, and Trent, I am absolutely delighted to have you here on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Aleisha, and listeners of Black Box. I'm just pumped to be here and share a little bit about what we do. So excited for the episode.
Yeah, fantastic, Trent. Well, I know we've got plenty to cover. I know we've had a few conversations about what you've been digging deep on your side and obviously maximizing our results, which is what this podcast is all about. So we are literally going to dive straight into these questions so we can hear from you firsthand and get some context and some takeaways of how we can all take these insights and grow our businesses respectively. So I'll start here, Trent. Over the past 12 months specifically, what strategies do you think have delivered the best results in terms of increasing traffic and in terms of increasing lead generation?
Yeah, hey, look, I mean, I think it has to start for us, or it has started with us, with a very simple strategy, a digital strategy that gives us, I guess, the grounding to know what it is that we are doing, what we're working towards, and where we need to go to get there. And so for us, it's the centerpiece. It's the North Star for us as far as how we're able to do those things that you talk about. So you talk about, I guess, outputs of a really solid digital strategy being, website traffic and lead generation. And for a real estate network of our size, with the expectations, of a franchise group that they hold upon us for the investment that they make, those things are outputs that we need to absolutely be delivering on. But at the heart of it, and you talked about the global reach and the nature of our business, there are complexities to it, but at the heart of it, real estate's really simple. And so for us, nailing the simplicity of a digital strategy is important. I mean, now the role for me and for the team, and equally for the corporate team with regards to the network, is as franchisor, is to be the most sought after brand in what is really a crowded marketplace. And so, we need to be the brand of choice, and off the back of that, create outcomes for the network. And so to do that, we break if you look at just those things that you spoke about, so you talk about lead generation and traffic growth, there's some complexities to it, but at the end of the day too, there are some simple things that if you're getting right, that we're focused on, you can absolutely work towards growth in both of those. So if I break it down in a few of the areas, so the foundations for your digital strategy are in many respects reliant on an optimal SEO performance, or the optimal SEO strategies these days they're a minimum requirement, right? And so Everything
And
from the
how,
technical.
Trent, sorry to interrupt, how up the funnel do you, in terms of priority, because obviously SEO is brilliant just because it's that,
Yeah,
we call it free traffic. We know we have to invest in SEO, but it's the non-paid traffic piece. How
yeah.
much of a priority do you put on that SEO space, especially in your industry, to make sure that you're leading from the front there?
Look, we are in a high competition market.
Mhm.
And so for us, SEO, I mean, everything's a priority, which
Yep.
sometimes means nothing's a priority. But if you, at the same time, right, you have to get the fundamentals of SEO right
Yeah.
because pay to play, which is obviously the other component or another component of marketing that we'll dive into today,
Mhm.
there could be or might be some limitations to that. Notwithstanding that, there is an expectation from our network that if they are joining us, they are joining a brand that is giving them the best opportunity to win that free traffic that you speak about.
Yep.
So the
Mhm.
architecture, the structure, and the component parts of SEO, they need to be on point. These are the questions that we're getting when recruits are talking to us about the potential of joining Harcourts. So tell me about your SEO strategy. How are you winning more traffic? How are you going to help me with local search marketing? And for us, we need to do both. We need to be a brand that's on the shopping list of page one on search for key search terms at a national level, and we need to be winning those high intent local searches. We've doubled our organic traffic in 12 months. So
Yep.
if you talk about just the value of that traffic for a moment, don't ignore the fact that you'd otherwise have to pay for that if you really wanted to. And in a market like ours, where we're competing with portals through to banks, through to other real estate brands, it's not a strategy that you can retain, for the long term,
And
right?
and
So
that's the challenge, isn't it? I mean, the whole conversation around SEO versus pay to play. Pay to play becomes almost instantaneous that you're getting those clicks and those leads coming to the website, whereas your SEO very much is a long game. But when invested in and when done correctly with the
yeah,
W3C compliance, the on page and the off page, you're then
yeah.
able to get, that end up like what you said, it ends up becoming one of the sort of the stars amongst the strategies to say, okay, this is fundamentally working for us with that doubling of traffic. And that, would you say, because I think if we just uh, look at that pay to play versus SEO, what
Yeah.
are maybe some insights you can give our listeners on what you've had to do to make that work? Because with SEO being a little bit more of a long game, it is often, oh geez, like, do we really need to invest in it now? Like, we've got to deliver these short term, and I know we're going to get to some more on short term versus long term, but is there any sort of pearls of wisdom you can give us here on this piece of just around how you balance it and why what are the things that you do to prioritize it so it doesn't get forgotten, and then 12 months later you do get the reward, which is doubling the organic traffic.
Yeah, I think, look, there's lots of things that I could say. So I'll try and give a few key things. One of them is obviously the investment that we're making it goes well beyond the investment we make in the SEO consultant that we work with.
Mhm.
Obviously, the development hours and the time required for developers to actually implement the work that we identify as opportunities, we're talking large sums of money. And so the business needs to be prepared to understand the investment that's required in order to be best in class for that. But, let's face it, we're in a network or an industry of 46 odd thousand real estate offices and shop fronts across the country and about 130,000 people. So if
Yeah.
you want to talk about choice, we will be irrelevant, simply put, if we don't invest in SEO and best practice SEO. And so when we talk about sustainable investment, that's where we really see our role as franchisor is
Mhm.
to provide sustainable, ongoing investment in things that make a difference for our officers and those that join us so that they can really focus on those incremental areas of growth, whether that's SEM, whether that's business listings, whether
Mhm.
that's search and display, whether that's other things to build their brand within a local environment. And so, we know we go all in when it comes to understanding the value of our website because we understand that for us,
Mhm.
we need to try and win that customer, try and retain that customer, try and keep them sticky to us so that we are that brand of choice because the transactional value, we're not operating in Big Macs and Diet Cokes. We're operating in long cycles of high value purchase and sale items, property,
Mhm.
life's biggest asset that you don't trade in often. I think the trade period is roughly anywhere between 7 and 9 years. And the cycle of starting to listing, if you take sales just as an example, could be anywhere up to 12 months. And so for us, having those foundations right for SEO, the development investment that we make, working with an expert, they do give us an advantage in order to be able to be competitive in a market that's increasingly competitive.
100, and yeah, in your space especially, right, to be battling for that to win that one listing or that one sale is absolutely imperative. So if we go now a little bit more holistic and we look at
Mm.
the challenge that you have with over almost close to 1,000 offices, how and where have been the wins in sort of the last 12 months of being able to sort of allocate, yes, the traffic obviously all coming through, but allocating those qualified leads to each of those offices, across not only in Australia but internationally as well. Can you sort of give us some insight on what's worked particularly well for you there once you've got that traffic to the site, leveraging those either marketing or media advertising strategies to drive that lead generation? Because as you said before, they are so heavily reliant on those leads coming through because that's the engine room of their business, right? And they're counting on you to deliver that.
Yeah, they are. And look, hey, I won't profess to say that we've got everything right, but at the same time, we're very conscious of, or we operate as a business on curiosity, and effectively, I love that because it means the business is forever asking the question: could we be better? What could we do differently in order to get better? And so, we talk about the competition that we're in, and so if you park that to one side for the moment, because there is plenty of it, we need to create value and an experience on our website that means or creates a meaningful, easy, seamless experience for a customer. Because at the end of the day, they've never had more information at their fingertips about real estate. You
Absolutely.
can find you can get a value in less than 3 minutes as an approximation of what your property is worth these days from anyone, whether that's the banks, whether that's agent-led websites, whether that's property portals, or whether that's us. And so no longer can you hang on to that as being a point of difference or a point of value. You need to be doing all things really well, which sounds challenging, but it's the truth because there are, as I've said before, too much choice for someone to lean into. So for us, we look at everything around how we're providing value to the customer. Whether that's content marketing, whether that's guides, whether that's webinars, whether that's other things to keep people informed
Mhm.
about what's happening. And that's not just what's happening in the marketplace. That's, I guess, really exposing some of the things that people may not see, understand, or know when they start and enter this cycle of property listing, for an example, which can be particularly daunting depending on the circumstances of which you're obviously also entering the market. So we we're trying to create as much value as we can around content. Obviously, we're deeply focused on how we also unlock and provide value around the minimum standards of things like we've got a digital property appraisal tool, which makes things easy for people to understand what it is and what they're competing in by way of suburb market performance, property value, and all those sorts of things.
And are
We've got
those, Trent, on just on that, because it's a great point, is that obviously through that process, you're also collecting information as well, right? So you're creating this value for the consumer. But at that point in time, from a data strategy, are you also
Mm.
collecting that data just to be able to start to build those profiles on that person, completing the appraisal or completing the widget or whatever it might be, to start
Yeah,
to build, okay, how can we now better engage? How can we now better serve this consumer that's coming through our funnel?
Yeah, I would say that we are still at the start of our journey around how we mobilize holistically a network that sells, more than 23,000 properties every year in Australia alone. How we mobilize our customers to push them through top to bottom of funnel. Because obviously at the top of the funnel, they're showing some sort of intent. They are
Mhm.
displaying signs that there is an interest, depending on what side of the fence it is. They might be a buyer, seller, investor, or renter. And so we very much are working towards, we're at the start of our journey around how we understand, take that behavior and create value from that, to your point around
Mhm.
whether that's as simple as entering them into an identifiable marketing automation segment that targets them and provides them, pushes value back to them through email marketing, or goes to, other extents around remarketing of relevant information back to them through the way in which we go to market from a marketing perspective. We are but we're not anywhere near where we need to
Yeah.
be.
I do
And
think it's a great point, though, Trent, because you've just touched on a couple of really key elements there. Is that the whole when you're coming at it with the premise of creating value, right? So we now know that it's harder than ever before to actually one get people into the funnel, higher costs as well, but then also to keep them in the funnel and keep them on that journey. But I think especially for a lot of marketers out there, really just tapping back into, and you've said it multiple times, is how can we create value? How can we deliver value upfront at the awareness stage, at the consideration stage? So we're actually meeting them where they are in the consumer journey, as opposed to just a random email going out that's like, hey, these are the tools that we've got. Hang on a second. Where are they at right now? What tools might they need? And how can we create value? How can we add value to their life, to their family, to them as a person to help them on this incredibly challenging journey, which is buying a home, right? Which is the arguably and is the largest purchase that most people will make in their lifetime. So that's been super valuable. I just want to now take a slight turn and talk about now. Okay, if they're the things that work, what didn't work, and how have you refined your approach? And I know you said to me as well, Trent, you're a Ted Lasso fan. I'm
almost.
catching up on my Ted Lasso coaching, but I am extraordinarily curious as to this. So can you give us some context now on sort of what hasn't worked, because that's equally as important when we uncover. Often I find the things that don't work are the things that then lead to the solution that we need, right? It's that sort of fail fast journey to go, okay, what do we need to uncover? What do we need to become curious about to then be able to achieve our outcome? So can you give us some context on that maybe over the last 12 months and how you've refined your approach?
Hey, you're going to love Ted Lasso just as a starting point. And for anyone who's listening that hasn't, just tune in because season 4 is not far away. I
Got
think
to be
it's a
done.
good
I'm
question.
starting. I'm going to binge it.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, yeah, absolutely. I would only encourage it. A lot of life lessons in that. But, we'll move on from Ted because, like, otherwise I'll spend all day. I think probably the interesting point for me is not so much around what didn't work, but what lessons you've learned, because they
Yeah.
are obviously lessons you've learned are a reflection of what might not have worked as well as you had hoped. But the beauty about digital marketing as just, a byproduct of its evolution since, in the time I've been in marketing is that you make learnings fast, and they are staring you in the face because the data doesn't lie and you've never had more opportunity to understand and assess the data. And we have, as a business, moved from a business that was focused on, well, what is the data telling us, to how do we draw insight from that data and make a deliberate change in order to shift our strategy so that we can be more focused, more fast. I think an example of a learning that we've made in the last 12 months, and I've got a great team who ultimately are the leads on this sort of stuff. But the learning we've made, particularly if you look at the lead generation for a moment in the last 12 months, is that we had been running, I guess, a full funnel approach when it comes to the channels that are available to drive lead generation. And there are many ways you can skin that cat. We were using a social and search approach to lead generation. There are no shortage of people in real estate who will sell you an opportunity to generate leads in different ways, and most of them are using those products in some way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
Um, what we noticed, however, in the last 12 months and what we've shifted as a result of that is we were using both. We were using Meta and search. And over the course of the last 12 months, we found the efficiency in Meta to be diminishing as far as the overall value that we were generating from the investment that we make in it. And so, and we looked at just key factors or simple things like what are our cost per leads as an indicator of performance. Because we don't have deep pockets. We're not the McDonald's of real estate,
Mhm.
but we are efficient, fast, and effective. And so for us, it was around how are we making the best use of the investment opportunity that we do have to drive the outcomes that our network demands of us. And so we had to make a move. We've shifted from out of Meta into a search option
First, yep. Mhm.
for us, which is delivering not only more leads, but with more investment, with more optimization, and with more dedication to it, we're actually getting. We've made some further reductions on the cost per lead, but we're just getting more efficient, and better results.
Yep.
We're now also going deeper on that, which I'm sure many people have or are in an environment like ours. Um, it's good to make those. make those insights and make a change as a result of those. But we also look at what happens as a result of those leads, because ultimately what we're creating is not leads, they're opportunities. They need to be converted on by our team from a sales perspective. And so we
And
can
just
track.
on that, Trent, just because you've brought up a multitude of good points here. Like, first of all, let's just take a look at the fact that in order to make that's quite a bold decision to make as a
Mm,
team, right? So that obviously the team to be able to come together and go, right, we're going to do this with the data backed information to go, okay, this makes good sense to us.
yeah,
Sometimes it is those bold moves that are required to go, no, we're gonna pivot or turn the ship or whatever it might be to be able to get that desired outcome. And then secondly, to your point, when you're looking at, and I think this is where sometimes marketers can not necessarily go wrong, but just get overwhelmed in the data to go, well, hang on a second, we can't just look at that one stage. To your point, we're going to look at multiple stages of the funnel. So yeah, okay, if we're going to get a more efficient lead from paid search as an example, what is that more efficient lead going to drive us in terms of appointments and inquiries
yeah.
and, listings, and then obviously ultimately sales. So when you're looking at that, and I think I could get a feel for obviously the amount of data back decisions you are making. Can you give our listeners some context then of sort of that full funnel feedback loop that you're now about to touch on around? Okay, well, yes, we're now driving a more efficient lead, or a high quality lead, or a lower cost per lead, but what is that actually resulting to in our end? In our end game.
Yeah, and our end game is just winning more business or doing more deals
Yep.
for buyers. And selfishly, it's because we believe that we can give those customers the best possible experience and generate the best outcome.
Hmm.
And you would expect me to say that naturally. But we are and have for a long time looked at, well, what is the end result that we are getting in terms of from lead opportunities creative to leads converted or listings? So what
Hmm.
comes to market from those leads that we do generate? So we do track that, and we have a conversion ratio that I think is for a high stakes game or a high value game. Um, Decent.
Hmm.
It's about anywhere between 30% or more, which, you'd love to be winning 100% of listings. But at the same time, for us, the reality is based on a whole set of circumstances, which, may be different for different people. There's
Yep.
lots of choice. And so for us, we've got to continue to work, though, on refining that and growing that. I mean, it's our goal to get that to 100. There's no doubt. But at the same time, we make small steps. And so we are continuing to assess the data. So what is it, if we're making a shift, and you're right, it is a bold move, but we need to be, our network moves at a fast pace. And so for us, we need to operate in the same way and make decisions, like we have in doubling down
Hmm.
into search. We've got some experience and some history in that to know that it will work. And so it's a calculated move. And obviously we've seen some data, that indicated that it would be a good shift for us.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it was calculated. So we're now looking at, well, what is the search channel delivering when I compare it to what we were doing previously with a dual approach of meta and search or social and search, as far as are we converting more or less listings from those that are generated?
Hmm.
So, we are in the throes of that at the moment as far as, well, what is, forget for a moment the most cost effective channel, what is the most productive
An
channel
efficient
for us
channel.
in terms of, actually being able to generate those leads and converting them? And is there anything we can draw from that, or is that just merely an indicator of entry point?
Yeah,
And
no,
so,
that makes total sense. So
mm,
awesome. That's now really coming together nicely. And then if we just look at sort of the final part of that, which you and I have discussed, of this sort of challenge of today's consumer, where they are moving sort of through multiple stages of the funnel, back and forth. They become aware, they consider, then life happens, so they're out. Then they come back, they become aware again, they consider. And then maybe hopefully finally they get through to the intention stage. You've spoken a lot about this whole transition from a passive to an active consumer. Can you give us some context of just, theoretically, the sense of, with this evolving marketplace, this evolving, media funnel, an evolving way of the way in which people engage and the information that they now have available to us, how you can move people from the passive stage to the active stage, which I really like as a construct to look at, okay, well, what can be done in those places, and meeting people where they are, meeting consumers where they are.
yeah, I mean, it requires all touch points, really, to be truthful, to move them from a passive to an active customer, because that journey, like I said, is anywhere from 9 to 12 months on average as far as the
Mhm.
starting to end point. And so for us, I mean, we're fortunate. We've got a large network. So we've got about 400 offices within our group from an Australian perspective. And so there's plenty of shop fronts where the Harcourts brand is exposed. But if you
Mhm.
talk about just the digital journey that someone goes on from a passive customer, so, we're very deliberate in our strategy because we need to be, whether it's
Mhm.
budget efficiencies or not, in who and how we reach customers. And so from a passive perspective, there are lots of ways for us to reach those. But social is a really great example of someone who passively may not be thinking real estate in any capacity at all, whether that's moving home to find a new space for them as a rental, or whether that's looking at an investment property opportunity, or whether that's taking the family and uprooting them and moving them somewhere else if they're nearing that cycle of age where they're thinking about school, for example. And so for us, we require, or we take a channel approach to how we engage different audiences differently, so that we,
Mhm.
in some respects, move them through that. But for us, we need to find ways to own that customer as early as we possibly can, and then obviously use that information that they're giving us, that we have access
Mhm.
to, in order to reconnect with them regularly. And we've got um, to do that, you need to be really efficient in what you're doing digitally, whether that's, a high performing, high functional website that's offering value, through to a sound email marketing strategy, through to a brand of people who are actively engaged in the marketplace, through to an advertising strategy that's reaching them at the right time with the right information, in the right way. It really is, it's the sum of all parts that allows us to move someone from passive to active. Now, for us, like I've said to you, there's plenty of competition. So there's no shortage of of opportunity for someone to shift from, in that journey from
Mhm.
Harcourts to another one of the brands that are available. And so our responsibility is making sure, though, that we are capitalizing on the information that we have and giving them the value that they need, want, deserve, in order for them to retain Harcourts within their options of a brand to consider when they are, getting closer to that stage of making a decision around, right, or if I'm going to list and sell, you know, I have to include Harcourts within the process of, selecting
You've got to be on
and
that shopping list, right? You've got to be, yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm. No,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
make
So
that, and
that's
that's
how.
the thing, is that now we've got those buying signals available to us. If we take what we're all doing, sort of, 10, definitely 20 years
Yeah,
ago, we didn't have that data and those signals available to us to say, okay, right now they're ready for this, now they're ready for this. So
yeah.
that focus on the passive to the active buyer is key. Now, before we move on to the next section, Trent, I always like to ask, this is every marketer's challenge, but how do you justify brand investment when performance marketing is often delivering an immediate result in terms of leads and sales? What's your take on the long and short of it, so to speak, for brand and performance marketing?
I mean, it's a juggle, and it's an age-old battle that I'm sure marketers have and face today. And I'm not sure what will be the time or moment in history that will change. But look, I think we're fortunate. I work in a business who, values the expertise of people who lead different business units. And so, I am, very lucky in that regard. We're a business that values and starts at a place of trust, and it's yours to lose. And so for us, it'll always be a juggle around brand investment versus lead investment, because we
Mhm.
are and have become, like many real estate businesses, a business that enjoys the sugar hit of lead generation and the value that it can create in the short term. But it obviously has diminishing returns if it's all you do in the long term. And like I said, there is too much opportunity for someone to choose someone else, for us to not care and want to invest in brand building, because real estate isn't transactional in the same way that buying, a hamburger or a pair of shoes, or a set of glasses might be. You know, we are a long-term service-based, people-based industry, and you are often entering or exiting the market at a time where there are emotional circumstances at hand. And so
Mhm.
for us, we can't ignore the need to build brand connection, value, and resonance with customers, because there is too much choice, and equally there is too much at stake for them at that point in time for us to not want to be part of their consideration set. And so, it's no doubt a difficult job to continue to convince, whether it's the C-suite, whether it's the board, whoever it may be, that we need to continue to build brand investment and make that brand investment. But we are fortunate to have people who appreciate the opportunity and the value that we provide through history and experience. But it also requires runs on the board. We can't simply just rely or rest on our laurels and say, hey, just trust us. There are
You got to
performance
win
and
over those hearts and minds at some point, right? You got to create that stickiness so people go, okay,
yeah,
no, that's a brand. I always joke to people and say, especially if someone's not in marketing, and I say, okay, well, name me a brand of toothpaste.
yeah,
And 9 times out of 10, they can only name two, Colgate and McLean's as an example. But
yeah,
actually, there's 125 brands of toothpaste available. So you have to
yeah,
find ways. And I think you're right in the space that you guys are in, that creativity aspect, balancing that, because yes, we've got performance, which is obviously what I would call the media mechanics. How do we drive the leads? How do we drive the conversion? Then we've got the brand, where we can look at both, okay, well, how do we do that from a media advertising standpoint? But ultimately, how do we win over hearts and minds? And I know
yeah.
you've got quite an interesting insight there on this is it compound creativity study that sort of starts to, can you just share a little bit with us about that? Because I think, a
Yeah.
lot of listeners, a lot of marketers know about the long and short of it by Peter Field and Les Binet, but this is a slightly interesting take. And I think we do need to combine the power of our marketing and media advertising with our creative cut through in order to really get the ultimate brand performance.
Yeah, and look, I personally fell in love with this study, so
Yep.
I'm absolutely happy to talk about it. So whilst it's not mine, I'm very much an advocate for it. I write a lot
Mhm.
about it to our network when we're able to get in front of them, whether that's through the construct of our magazine, through to events, and through to webinars. And so, yeah, they'll be bored about hearing from me about this particular study, but and there are many. You've touched on a couple of
Yep.
others that I guess allude to the value of brand building and brand marketing investment, but the one around compound creativity by System One in partnership with IPA I think it's the best I've seen for a little while, only because um, there are a number of factors. It's longitudinal, so I think it was a study over 7 years. It's
Yep.
of mass media investment. I think there was something like $6 billion worth of advertising investment assessed, and it's something like 50 odd brands or more. And I'll get some of those numbers slightly wrong, but it gives you some sense of the proof points and the investment
Mhm.
of the value of that study. And so, what it says or what it does, and I encourage people to look it up, really is that brands who invest and do marketing consistently, and by that, that's creative playing into the same space as media investment.
Yep.
They, over the course of that period of time, it was proven that there are a whole lot of um, elements that are created, or value that is created around doing that well. And
Mhm.
so, in simple terms, what I like about it and what I liken it to from a real estate perspective, who operates in a franchise business where there are a lot of extremely creative people who, value and see marketing as an element of their job that they can absolutely do really well, and absolutely no doubt they can. But at the same time, the importance of brand marketing and brand consistency with regards to market share,
Mhm.
profitability, share of mind, share of wallet, all of those things. There were indicators out of this study, and I won't quote the percentages. I'll let people read for themselves. But the insight from this study around the increases that a brand who does that well were astonishing. And so for me, we operate in a brand that, no doubt we've got opportunity when it comes to how we do things consistently and well, because we have far too much competition to not.
Mhm.
And so this study for me was a great ally in the importance of doing brand marketing really well, because if you do it in a way where it's disparate, where it looks different, where it sounds different, where we don't seem to be cohesive and we're not consistent, then I know, as an example of drawing reference from this study, that we will fail. and we will
And
fail.
people will see through that, right? Like the consumer now is so switched on, so smart. We're receiving thousands of messages per day that we have to appreciate that value to be able to cut through and drive that creativity. So
Yeah,
look it up, everybody. It's worth the
yeah.
read and absolutely drawing those insights. So thank you for sharing that, Trent. Now I want to just change tune a little bit now and get into this sort of structuring high performance teams. And I really want to understand how you are able to structure and manage your brand and your performance teams for effective collaboration. And the reason I'm really interested in this is when I'm speaking with CMOs and marketers, this is one of the biggest challenges is how do we drive a full funnel, holistic view of our marketing and our media advertising approach, but we also allocate the responsibility within the team to drive the brand, to drive the consideration, to drive the ultimate performance without losing sight of the omni-channel experience that needs to be delivered. So there's a lot in there, but I'm just really keen to get your take, Trent, on being, a significant sized business in this space is how do you manage that effectively?
We're a pretty lean, mean machine. So for us, there are a lot to it. There is a lot to it, as you've, suggested as
Yep.
far as managing performance and brand teams. I think it has to start with, I'm very fortunate to have great people who ultimately lead that function within our business. And there is a delicate and fine balance as to where that line is, because sometimes it can be crossed, obviously, without intent. And so
Yep.
roles and responsibilities and clear delineation of being part of the process to add value where your expertise lies is, in simple terms, how we try our best to define it and to execute on that. We don't always get it right, but we operate in a team where we value the education, the
Mhm.
knowledge of the individual.
The
And I know
inputs,
that's
yeah.
easy to say and harder to do, but at the same time, we appreciate the value that each other provides. And so having a very clear process that you go through from start to finish has helped our team get there fast, because we can't lose speed at the sake of ego or personality or opinion. And so we do very much have a clear a guide or
Mhm.
guardrails when it comes to roles and responsibilities. And from a brand perspective, that's leveraging the insight, value, and knowledge of someone who understands the construct of our brand, how to pull it together, how to understand and leverage, our brand position, how to create compelling creative and messaging in order to have impact at scale. And we are talking about scale because we do service 11 countries that we operate in. And so that involves, a whole history of challenges, whether that's, imagery, content and other things,
Down to the
and
finite details,
reputation.
right?
So, that we do have to be ninja-like when it comes to, I guess, understanding the role that, each other plays. And so from a brand perspective, we've got someone in that role who knows our brand back to front and who can execute at pace, at scale, and do that really well.
Yep.
But at the same time, they really appreciate the performance aspect of what marketing does, because one can't live without the other. And so, for our team, it's how do we extrapolate the insights up front? So in the process of ideation, creation, briefing, for the teams who work up what it is that we do, to make sure that what we deliver at the end
Mhm.
takes into account the ever evolving space that is digital marketing, and whether that's
Yep.
how the algorithm changes and performs through to different channels, through to different formats, through the way in which objectively what we are trying to do. Because even if we talk about objectives for a moment within digital marketing, the beauty about it is too that you can be really clear on what your intent is and what your outcome is that you're achieving. And so your marketing and creative needs to support and speak to that. And so, the two work together from the start. And
Mhm.
I talk about two as, two units, branded performance marketing, because they have
And are
to.
those teams, Trent, in your view, are those teams working cohesively together? Though are they, daily conversations, daily interaction? Because we've got some marketers out there that are running literally as a CMO, they've got their brand marketing team, but then they've got their e-commerce team completely separate, and so it's a completely separate division. Whereas then we've got other businesses, which I think you're sort of talking more to, is hey, we've got this marketing team,
Yeah.
each with different contributions, brand performance, and so on. So,
Yeah.
what do you think, in your view, what is going to get the best outcome? What's going to get the best result to drive, ultimately brand, but also performance?
Yeah, hey, it'll work differently for different people, but my view on
Yep.
that is that we we own the intelligence and the execution
Mhm.
internally. So we don't
Yeah,
rely on the need for. No doubt, we call on expertise for agencies and the like when we need
yeah, of
help to,
course.
I guess, think a little bit more laterally as far as how we go to market for creative executions and brand and brand work and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, for us cohesively, because we are a business that does have the scale that we have and the complexities that we do, for us, it works best if we have that talent in-house, and we absolutely do. And that allows us
And all
to
working in the same team? Like, is that sort of that,
all
when you
working
think
in the
about
same team.
exactly, okay, there you
Yeah,
go. Because that, I think, is just one thing that's been on marketers' minds is, really, especially for CMOs structuring their team. It's like, do I bring this all together or am I going to accept that I've got separate silos and divisions? And I think,
yeah,
the core point of bringing everyone to the table to go, look, we each have a role to play. We each have a part to play in this brand, creative, in some businesses, e-commerce, performance, whatever it might be, to go, right, this, everyone on the boat, let's go. This is the direction that
yeah.
we're heading in, with those that now each of the talents, each of the people contributing, doing what they do best.
Yeah, and I think if you are operating in that model, and that's not to say it's wrong and I'm right, I think the important part, if you are operating in that model, from what I've seen within our business, that
Yep.
does or has a history of, probably like lots of businesses working in silos, I feel like we've never been right now, Harcourt's been better placed to have those silos. I feel like they've fallen down. I feel like they've removed. And I tell you the reason why I feel that way. And that's really because we have found a way to have um, what is a complex strategy simplified. So the messaging that we are delivering our network is clear, it's consistent, it's of high frequency, and it does not change. So, talk about communication and the value of communication, and whether that's relationships or whether that's work. Communication, it can never, I think it's the linchpin to everything that anyone does. And so when we talk about how we operate, we've never been in a position, been in a better position to, I think, be more effective and be able to operate faster, because everyone understands what it is that we are working to. It is very simple messaging that's easy to understand and easy to interpret into your role, my role, the role of anyone within our business. And I
I
think,
don't think, yeah, I don't think you can discount that. I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of, if we just go back to, yes, we've got all of this technology, yes, we've got all of this availability, but if you just go back to the core fundamentals, I talk a lot about critical thinking, using logic, but then also the precise need for good communication. We have acronyms in our business, CCC and POL. CCC is crystal clear communication and POL is precision of language, because you cannot underestimate the value of that articulation. So whoever you're communicating with can get that experience and know, and to your point, especially when you're managing these teams, exactly what needs to be done. Now, I just want to change tracks again, just on this whole use of digital. So obviously we've got this place now where digital, when it first started, was sort of seen as a performance mechanism. It's like, okay, great, we can get leads from here, we can get sales from here, we can drive an e-commerce business here. How do you, when you're balancing traditional and digital media, how do you educate stakeholders, the business, on the need to leverage digital on a holistic level to also play a huge role in that awareness and consideration play? Is that something that is just naturally quite fluid in the business, or is that something that you're still going through that education process with? And if so, how do you bring that to life, and how do you create that importance? Because now with the digital platforms, we can use those pure play as awareness and consideration drivers.
yeah, I think we lead from the front, but we provide opportunity that's turnkey, that makes it really easy to
Mhm.
do ultimately what it is that we are saying you need to be doing these days. And so, for us, whilst we have a team and we have a budget and we have a plan,
Yeah.
equally, that operates in isolation and is of limited value unless the 1,000 officers, or in Australia, the 400 officers, have an understanding, appreciation, and an opportunity to replicate what it is that we do on
Mhm.
a local level. And so, that requires a couple of things from our perspective to be done really well. One, we need to be able to provide them access to what it is that they need to functionally just do
Mhm.
what it is that they need to do, and that's templates, assets, logos. Forget that, it's the hygiene stuff that they need to have to operate at scale fast.
Yep.
They need to have access to the best in market platforms that allow them to understand what it is that the opportunity is, and search engine marketing is a really good one.
Mhm.
Yeah, unless you understand it and you are proficient in it, then it's probably complex to get into, and it's probably an easy choice to opt out of, and to just to go into social, because these days, the construct of how you can go to market within social from a paid perspective is pretty simple. And so
Yeah,
when we talk about the
100%.
value of and the accessibility of it, that's what we talk about. We have a partner in the search engine marketing space that
Mhm,
provides a scalable solution that our network can understand the value of and make a deliberate choice to invest in as part of their local marketing strategy.
mhm,
For us, then beyond that, we've got a turnkey partner for digital marketing in other environments, display, social,
mhm.
and the like, who provides an opportunity for our network to build awareness and consideration through a marketing product that we have called Harcourts Reach, which is proprietary, bespoke, and allows them to go to market in a seamless way, whether that's for property through the CRM to deploy. Through to the other avenues that they can choose, which is to do personal brand marketing or to do lead generation marketing. And so we talk about leading from the front. We talk about providing access and accessibility through best-in-class partners, and we provide education. So it's our responsibility, not theirs. I see as being informed and to understand what's happening within the space of digital, not from the complexities of algorithm changes or anything like that, but it is
But no,
what
giving
they
them that
need to know.
opportunity and that accessibility to be able to go, right, here it is, here are the levers in which you can pull in your respective
Yeah.
business to make sure that they're armed. Now, can you give us a little bit of context about this Harcourt Reach? Because it's quite, Harcourt's Reach is quite obviously, when talking about leading from the front, obviously you guys have invested in this platform. Can you give us a little bit of context about what that is and how that has helped you significantly increase that ability to deliver for your franchisees?
Yeah. So when I started in 2.5 years ago at Harcourts, what was very clear to me was that there was a real lack of consistency, but a massive opportunity when it comes to having a turnkey solution for real estate digital marketing. And
Mhm.
Harcourts Reach is effectively it. So what is it? It's a product that allows our networks, our agents, our property managers, and our officers to invest in a really simple way through the CRM with a series of products and prices and outcomes as a result of that to go to market, because their responsibility, irrespective of what it is that they're doing, is to um, create competition, drive value. And, in doing that, they're building awareness and, identifying prospective customers. And so Reach is a product that we have partnered with, a third party on to bring to our network to earmark as the solution for them to go to market when they are thinking about a digital strategy for local investment. And
Mhm.
that could be anything from property marketing, like I said, to lead generation through to personal brand marketing. And every real estate business worth their salt will have some sort of solution like this. But
And
for us,
what's that led to? Like, what are some of the results that you've been able to see through that to go, okay,
yeah,
how can we actually measure the efficiency of this? What are we actually getting from this to drive either
yeah.
efficiency or, time to sale or whatever it might be?
Yeah, so look, I mean, we were fortunate to have the support of one part of our network, I guess, be the guinea pigs of Harcourts Reach for us. And so, a period of 12 months, they ran Harcourts Reach within their business for their listings, just as a
Mhm.
listings product, so a sales product. And what we saw over the course of that, what it allowed us to do was really start to understand the value that Reach would provide our network at scale. And what do I mean by that? Well, lots of people in real estate talk about a product like Reach, in the context of I delivered, these impressions or these amount of clicks or
Mhm.
whatever it might be. For us, vanity metrics don't matter anymore, and nor do they matter for those that are investing their hard earned. Because for those that don't understand real estate, and I'm sure lots of people do, having transacted, but it's vendor paid advertising for the most part. So you are the one that is ultimately in control of the investment that you make to market your property when it goes to sale or is up for lease,
Yep.
as to how you create competition and create or maximize your opportunity for revenue, whether that's to sell or to lease in the fastest possible time. And so what Reach did for that particular group that we tried it with for 12 months was prove two things. One was, over the course of 12 months, so a really strong sample set of data, it was more than 500 properties.
Mhm.
It proved that for those that had reach versus didn't have reach attributed to their marketing campaign, and let's not forget that often the minimum standard for a property marketing campaign these days includes property portals, includes mail drops, includes a whole raft of things. But what we saw was when they added reach, they were able to list and sell in 10 days less time. And there's nothing that makes a vendor happier than
Yep.
getting a result faster. But
Yep.
equally as important for that is how are we maximizing the value opportunity, because it doesn't come around all that often. Like I said, 7 to 10 years
Yep.
earlier on, and it's life's biggest asset. So the equity that we build in that, the blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into that investment, we want to extrapolate the maximum return. So they were able to also achieve a $17,000 higher price point on average for those that weren't using Reach. And so if you talk about just performance metrics for a moment, they are the things
Mhm.
that ring the register in real estate when it comes to cash. And so for us, that was enough to say, right, we
This is now a worthy, yeah.
absolutely has to do that. And so look, what has it done beyond that for us? And they're metrics that obviously matter and
Mhm.
probably matter most, if I'm honest with you. But having the adoption that we've had, so we launched it 12 months ago or a little bit longer to our network. We've had um, up to, at its peak, 80% of the network using Reach within what it is that they're doing. What has that done for us? We've seen a 44% increase in traffic to our website. And if you want to talk about the creation of stickiness in customers, we know that we are in competition with some pretty serious players. And so when we talk about portals and other competition for the moment, the portals outstrip everyone when it comes to customers and customer relationships. And so
Yep.
we won't and aren't intending to compete in that respect, because we know it's a place where people start, but we need to become the place that people come back to and visit when they are starting to hone in on what it is that they want to do, whether that's to sell, whether that's to buy. And so,
Yep.
for us, Reach has given us an opportunity to really create a relationship with customers that we just weren't capitalizing on before. And to have a 44% increase in traffic off a decent base, is an outstanding result for us.
100%. And I think there's so much value in that for a lot of marketers, listening is really what is that for you? You guys have been able to obviously, implement this platform, test it accordingly to ensure that you've got statistical significance to go, right, this is giving us a great result. And then obviously you've got the scale to get that out to your network. But I think the fundamentals really come back as to being curious to find that solution, then being able to measure it and make sure that it's doing what it needs to do. Then you get the rewards that so few are able to achieve through that persistence of actually going through that process to make it happen. And now you've got something that you can scale across the network. So I do think that for marketers out there, it's just about asking, okay, well, what is that for me? What's that for my brand? And how can I put something like that in play? It doesn't have to be at a huge scale, but how can I put something like that in play to be able to get the outcome, that I need to achieve from this? So I think that just that example for, results driven advertising, results driven marketing is a brilliant example. So thank you for that. Thank you very much for that. Now, I've got a couple of last questions that I want to cover off with you, just to really give our listeners this value, because all these pearls of wisdom that you're shooting out today, we're gonna have to capture them. So I just want to flick quickly to tracking and attribution. So obviously in an omni-channel world, I mean, my question to you is, the biggest challenge is now, okay, well, how can I actually track this consumer through the funnel, through their offline and their digital interactions with that brand? My question to you is, with attribution changing, last click, first click, all that kind of thing evolving, how do you track and measure marketing performance across the funnel? And what is your view on this to achieve sort of ultimate results and ultimate trackability?
Yeah, look, hey, it's evolved, and different people will have a different response, no doubt.
Yep.
But because we operate in a relatively modest budget, when we compared with some of the other luxury brands that or other the brands where I've had more luxury, like McDonald's,
Mhm.
we have to track every dollar that we spend, and this investment ladders up against the performance outcome, which then ladders up against either it being a brand building activity or a lead generation activity. And,
Yes.
and so when we talk about specifics, for us, the way that we measure marketing performance, there are a number of ways. And so for
Mhm.
us, we talk about our own internal data. We have a team of people within our business who operate what we call H360, which won't mean much to your listeners, but think of it, as your analytics department within your world. And so we're fortunate enough for them to be able to work with us to identify everything from lead appraisal to conversion, buyer inquiries, market share, third-party providers, from third-party providers, our network business performance, NPS data from customers. And so when we talk about omni-channel world, how do we track marketing? There is no shortage of information that we have. When you add on to that things like channel insights, we're a partner of Adobe Analytics. We use Google Trends search data
Mhm.
to, I guess, assess, how are we performing against our competitive landscape using, brand search terms and, and high intent search terms. There is no shortage of ways that we can understand and assess our performance these days. And so, I might be different to others, but when we talk about first click versus last click attribution, I really think that the world offers us so much data these days that I'm not sure it's either. But if I had to choose one, I feel like we probably more lean into first click than last click because, at the same time, last click for others may necessarily be definitely a direct correlation to purchase outcomes. But for us, it's around intent because we need to start with intent because for
Like, where
us,
did they come from? What was their first interaction? Where did we grab their attention enough to warrant them doing something towards the attainment of engaging with us?
absolutely, because we have to be efficient, we have to be effective, and we need to
Mhm.
understand. For us, intent's a really good sign, and intent also allows us to continue to I guess market to that particular audience, and it definitely displays a behaviour for us that we can feed into other areas of our business, whether that's within digital marketing or whether that's within the space of products that we create that give our agents a tool to make contact with people if they're showing different intents, right? So for us, and we didn't even get into that, but there are other
Yeah.
things that we do that we, I guess, provide our agents an opportunity for them to be really effective because their focus needs to be on dollar productive activity, not marketing. And so
Mhm.
for us, for them, it's listing and selling and door knocking and making calls and optimizing their database and communicating appropriately. If they are doing that well, and we are doing our job well, then it works. And so when I talk about attribution for us, it's not a metric or a model that we invest heavily in from a discussion point of view, but absolutely we probably lean more into first than last for the reasons that I shared.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that context because I know a lot of marketers are dancing between, which is going to be the best approach going forward. So, look, Trent, this has been an incredible deep dive into real estate marketing. I know, our CMOs and our marketers listening will walk away with valuable insights from your expertise. So, before we wrap up, I just have one last question for you. What's the one key piece of advice you'd like to give marketing leaders looking to drive stronger performance in 2025?
Wow, I mean, what a question to end on, right? Because we've covered a lot of ground. If I boil it down to what is giving us the success that we have been able to enjoy over the last 12 months, I reckon it's really simple. Start with a clear strategy. Define what it is that you are wanting to achieve. And obviously for us, it ladders into our overarching business strategy. And, for us, in most real estate businesses, there are some pretty simple metrics that businesses like us work towards, and growth is a really good example of that. You'll hear growth talked about in real estate circles more than what the Prime Minister will when he talks about um, his next political campaign. But
That's it.
for us, it just starts with the strategy, and it's really important to invest the time into getting that right because it sets up the investment of time that we make as a team in order to realize the strategy and generate the outcomes that we're able to generate because we've got this North Star that we're working to. And so I think, I've been really
I love
fortunate to work
that.
with some
Yeah.
massive brands. But never has it been more simple to achieve what we want to um, than what it is right now within Harcourts because we have a very clear vision, mission, set of values, and purpose that guide the business. And within our business and within our department, we have a really clear strategy that sets us on a path every day, every hour, every week, every month towards a set of goals that we track, measure, report on, optimize, change, and evolve. Real estate changes, every day, whether that's, external market conditions to changes within your own network. And so for us, it has to be just start with a strategy.
Yeah,
Divide.
no, I love that. I couldn't agree more. Always refer back to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Number 2, begin with the end in mind. I
Yeah.
think we can often underestimate the value of just getting everybody aligned to that core outcome. So that is brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that, Trent. Now, what an awesome, this has just been so great. Last thing I want to ask is if people want to connect with you or learn more about Harcourt's marketing strategies, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, I mean, for most people, it'll be LinkedIn, which, I'm really easy to find. I'll be the only Trent Sutton who works for Harcourts on LinkedIn. So definitely you can find me there. Hey, I'm also happy for listeners to also drop me a note at trent.sutton@harcourts.net if they ever want to know more or understand more or dive into a particular point that we've talked about today. I know that we've covered lots of ground fast, and I'm hopeful that they've got value out of it. But anything that they want to talk about, I'm very open to being connected and contacted about. And hey, I look forward to hearing from people.
Unreal. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. And I know that there is going to be a ton of valuable insights that marketers are going to be able to extract. And I think that's what it's about. Not one of us have all the answers. And I think this collaboration of being able to share insights and ideas and strategies that work is what is going to foster, all of us as marketeers or, whatever we're trying to achieve to be able to actually, drive those results to the next level. So there you have it. Powerful insights from Trent Sutton on unlocking real estate marketing success in 25. If you've got value from this episode, hit subscribe to the Black Box of Media and leave a review. It helps more marketers like you unlock the hidden strategies behind high performance media. So let's keep this conversation going. If today's episode has sparked new ideas or challenged you in a way or challenged you in a different way of the way you think about media, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a message on LinkedIn and share your biggest takeaway. If you want more insider knowledge, remember you can listen and watch on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube for future episodes, once again packed with actionable insights. So until next time, keep pushing boundaries, keep testing, and most importantly, keep making media work harder for you. See you in the next episode.